Today's episode of Pop Culture Reference is brought to you by the Professional Cinema Society's biannual Student Film and Video Festival here at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. If you want to submit to this year's festival, the deadline is December 6th, and you can find more information on the Professional Cinema Society's Facebook page. Now, on with the show.
Broadcasting live from Toontown, this is Pop Culture Reference, your one-stop reference for all things pop culture. I'm Seamus Connolly.
I'm Garrett Strother.
Hi, hello, Ricardo Salgado.
Lots of news this week.
Yeah, there is actually a lot of news to go through this week. What do we want to start with?
My dad actually sends me some hot scoops sometimes.
Okay.
So he sent me a
his own
link the other
segment
day.
soon? I love it.
Where apparently lame duck Disney CEO Bob Iger, who is stepping down next year, recently did an interview where he admitted that they released too many Star Wars films over a short period of time, to which we all say, we know.
Yeah, no duh. Thank you for officially announcing that.
But, I mean, it's nice to hear that Disney knows what their mistake was. It makes me feel more confident that we aren't just going to be getting a Star Wars every year until the sun burns out, at the very least.
I mean, we will. It just won't be a movie.
Exactly. That they're going to understand at least to diversify their content, and then also stagger the films enough that we don't get fatigued with them immediately. We're going to have Mandalorian, and whenever the Cassian Andor show drops on Disney+, but other than that, they haven't officially announced when they're doing a new movie, so I think it's going to be nice to have a little bit of a reprieve.
Yeah, especially with those Game of Thrones guys out, it's kind of as up in the air as it has ever been.
Moving on, we have another onslaught of Batman casting news.
Well, these are rumors.
Colin Farrell as the Penguin.
I mean, that's not confirmed.
I feel like that's usually playing it out, seeing what the reception is, and then confirming
and then
it later.
Releasing the actual news. Much like when Robert Pattinson was announced as Batman, I'm not sure how to feel quite yet. Because we don't even really know what version of Batman really they're trying to go for here.
Yeah, we have no idea what the tone's going to be or the visual style. Also, if they are basing it off of the Batman story, The Long Halloween, how long are any of these characters actually going to be in the movie? Because in The Long Halloween, they essentially just show up for one scene a piece while Batman interviews them, and then they're gone from the story. So I want to know how much of that is going to play in, or if the casting of all these A-list actors is actually going to dictate that the characters are in the movie longer than they would have been if they had cast smaller names.
I don't know, man. I'm very excited for this. It's so good. I feel like that fleshes out this world that they're going for. Just having a bunch of them just kind of hanging around. There's not a focus on one of them. They're just like, it's Gotham. They're everywhere.
I'm not opposed to anything yet. I'm just scoping out the landscape.
And in scoping out the landscape, that other rumor also possibly, because I'm in agreement with you, Ricardo, that I like the idea of it being like, it's not a specific villain per movie or set of villains per movie. It might just be kind of like they're all here, they're in the background. It's all around the zeitgeist of Gotham City. And that new other rumor is that Mr. Matthew McConaughey is Harvey Dent Two-Face. I
don't know if that fits.
I could at the very least see him as Harvey Dent. I don't know about Two-Face so far, but
the problem is, Ricardo, if he were to play Two-Face, he would favor one side because, Matthew McConaughey is all right.
And he cut that out.
cut that out of the feed. I mean, with these announcements of all these like huge stars going to be in Batman, it is just going to spark a lot of memes and jokes about how like all of these villains are just going to become the actors that are portraying them in a way.
There's also another casting rumor.
About Batman?
Batman's most loyal and trusted companion, Sir Alfred Pennyworth, Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis is Alfred Pennyworth.
That's the rumor.
Interesting indeed. Interesting.
It's not bad. That's pretty good.
I don't hate it, because that means that they're going for a little more of gruff, like ex-spy Alfred, like ready to beat down.
Up for the Penguin.
Yeah, that was a rumor that he was going to be the Penguin.
Oh, maybe that was the wires crossed.
Concept art for that. It actually looked pretty good.
You just put some mocap dots on him. He can do anything. Stay tuned for more insane casting announcements, because who else could even be thrown in the mix here that would be just even more big and weirdly famous?
Ricardo, you've got news.
Yeah, there's another Scooby-Doo movie coming out. They released some promo images. The art style I'm really into. I think it looks really good.
Like, yeah, they just released that yesterday, 2
Yeah,
days ago.
yesterday.
It looks like pretty fun. Like, I'm kind of into
I'm
it.
digging the animation style. There's going to be a trailer on Monday. There's talk it's going to be the launching point to the Hanna-Barbera cinematic universe, which I'm about. I'm into it.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
I still don't know about that, the extended universe.
In the images, you see like a young Shaggy and Scooby, and in the background there's like action figures and drawings of the Blue Falcon.
I think this is probably going to expand beyond Scooby-Doo, even though this is only being advertised as a Scooby-Doo movie right now. I'm not sure about how Fred looks. Fred looks a little wonky to me.
What? He's got the cool new jacket on.
Yeah.
He's got the blonde
There's
hair.
no ascot, but there's a little orange highlight on his collar.
Yeah.
I don't like that there's no ascot.
I wish
all.
there was no ascot.
Also,
They're going to make a joke about it, I'm sure.
They've got it. Zac Efron, huh?
Yeah, Zac Efron is Fred. Will Forte is Shaggy.
Will Forte is Shaggy.
Gina
okay.
Rodriguez is Velma. Amanda Seyfried is Daphne. And
Wow.
Frank Welker continues to be Scooby-Doo.
I have no problems with any of that. I think that's. I'm pretty excited to see this.
It's also written by the same lady that wrote The Edge of 17. So
Really, I never saw that movie.
What a
It's very
weird
good.
jump.
Yeah,
I mean, they're teens. They're doing
they
teen
are
things.
perpetually teens.
Seamus, what's your news?
This is something that I saw the other day. Apparently, in an interview, Kelsey Grammer of Frasier fame. He's done other things. I know him from Frasier mostly. He almost confirmed, mostly confirmed, somewhat confirmed that the Frasier reboot is a go and could be as early as mid-2020. It wasn't like an official announcement type deal, but he would be the one to know, I guess, and
He'd also be the one to be hoping for it, to be fair.
that's true. He'd
He'd be the one
pushing...
to want to put that out into the ether.
It's not going to be the same without Martin.
Oh, God, rest in peace, John Mahoney. So recently, this year?
Yeah. No.
Last year?
Last year, at least.
It feels recent,
It does.
okay?
It does, like,
it hurt
no.
when that happened, man.
Martin's my favorite character on that show. I don't think I could support a Frasier reboot without Martin.
I mean, it's obviously, they're going to talk about it. I mean, that seems like a Frasier, like a serious enough thing to happen on a Frasier. Yeah, kind of deal with that. Where does the chair go? Oh, maybe Frasier's going to keep it just because he can't bear to get rid of it. Maybe Freddie will take it.
Is it Brady Bunch Christmas special style where they're all just like old and sad?
Is that what the Brady Bunch Christmas special's about?
They all have their problem that they are trying to hide from the family, right? So Jan is getting a divorce.
Oh.
Marcia's husband just lost his job.
What the hell, Brady Bunch? what? That's a family sitcom.
All right, I think that about wraps us up for news. Let's move on to our main segment. This week's main segment, we're talking about Who Framed Roger Rabbit from 1988, directed by Robert Zemeckis.
One of the...
What's that song at the end? Is that it?
Smile, darn you, smile.
yeah.
What is it in?
I think it's just an old cartoon song.
I know that's just the actual recording of that is all the animators that worked on that movie singing it.
It is.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
very touching. I actually had no idea. That's wonderful.
Doing their best tune voices.
Oh, and it works, because that ending is very heartfelt. And I brought this one in as my free space for today. And
a great free space it is, Seamus.
Yeah.
An excuse to rewatch this movie.
truly, because it is just, like, so much fun. It's funny and, like, a good play on all those great noir tropes. Like, Eddie Valiant is very real feeling. He feels like a cop in like, thrown into this weird situation.
Yeah, the thing that's nice about Roger Rabbit is they take it seriously, the story, the narrative, while also being in this fun, zany world, that they are able to focus on a narrative and character motivations and things that matter for telling a good story and a good noir, which you mentioned this is clearly spoofing or paying homage to.
It's not making fun of any of it, really.
True.
It's just, like, using the established tropes to, like, be part of that world more like it.
Yeah, that's fair. It also helps with the time period. I
Oh,
think that,
yes, of course.
Like, this dawn of color cartoons going hand in hand with the era of the noir are laid on top of each other. So it makes sense that's a good marriage for those two filmic concepts to intermingle.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this story follows Private Eye Eddie Valiant of Valiant and Valiant Investigations. He works on a case involving the RK Maroon Studios, which is a cartoon studio, the titular Roger Rabbit, his wife Jessica Rabbit, and Toontown, where all of the Toons live. So in this universe, cartoons are just like actors that you hire.
Toontown is just like a neighborhood in Hollywood, LA, and it is
a segregated neighborhood. But
yeah, that is like a huge point in this movie, is that the discrimination and like not abuse, but like Toons exploitation. Toons are taken advantage of to like be workers in this industry of like making cartoons the way they do.
Yeah, it's certainly a commentary on race and class in the Hollywood of the 1930s and 40s.
As a lot of noir films often go down an idea like that of, you know, class at least, and social standing, things like that. And another big noir trope that they throw in right away, which is one of it's like almost comically tragic, the
alcoholism,
the amount of alcohol that Eddie Valiant drinks is like, it could kill a horse, that much alcohol, and he downs it in every scene he can.
Well, this movie is dark. It really is.
Yeah.
And I remember I watched it when I was 6 or 7, thinking that it would be fine for me to watch. I would go into the cabinet full of VHS tapes that my family had, and I saw it had a cartoon on it, so I was like, this should be fine. And I watched it, and I was quite taken with it, but also kind of horrified, because it was probably the darkest thing I'd seen up until that point. There's murder, there's alcoholism, there's sex,
the tragic death of the other Valiant brother that comes up as kind of one of the reasons that Eddie is an alcoholic, and why he doesn't work with Toons, so he doesn't trust Toons.
We should probably get straight into the plot of the movie then.
Yeah, I guess so.
Is this where we call spoilers?
Sure, if you haven't seen Roger Rabbit, do that before you listen to this episode, please.
So we open rather brilliantly with a RK Maroon Roger Rabbit cartoon.
And it's a great cartoon. It's like an intro that could just be a Looney Tune.
That's what's so great about it. The idea of when you used to go to a movie, you would see a cartoon before the movie, and then this movie, the beginning of the movie, is the cartoon before the movie. It just folds together so nicely.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Let's see, we get, all these death-defying, super dangerous things going on with the baby trying to get the cookies out of the jar, and then we get a fridge drop, a classic cartoon fridge drop on Roger that, surprise, it calls cut on the set. And it's, pulls out, and we get to see that this is how cartoons are made in this world.
It's just on a soundstage.
It's just on a soundstage with a cartoon set and cartoon actors.
We learn that Baby Herman, while cute and baby-like in the cartoon, is really a
55 years old.
Yeah, cigar-smoking,
womanizing,
fast-talking
scumbag baby. He walks under the skirt of a woman on the set just to show all of us at home how terrible he really is.
And then Eddie Valiant's on the set. He's going to go meet with RK Maroon.
What a maroon.
What a good joke.
Oh, God.
That's something I really appreciated this time around, is how many tiny little background, RK Maroon being the most obvious example, but how many tiny little background in-jokes are rooted in those old cartoons, and how many, like, all the Acme stuff, obviously.
Oh, totally.
The idea of Acme being a titan of industry in the cartoon world is hilarious.
That movie is probably why I thought that was actually kind of a thing in cartoons, that Acme was like this through line to make that connected universe of Looney Tunes stuff.
They make terrible products.
They make cannons and missiles
that blow you up.
It's user error.
Yeah,
Ricardo.
That's an incompetent...
Acme is a legitimate business. They're going to send us a cease and desist if you don't stop.
Yeah, I've got a stake in Acme stock, buddy. Don't you tank what I have.
I was thinking this time about how much Looney Tunes Back in Action took from this movie.
Yeah,
not only the concept of the film studio and having the cartoons be actors in the film studio, but also the role of Acme in Looney Tunes Back in Action, and having that be a central part of the film.
Yeah, I am kind of stupid. I should have drawn those connections a little quicker because it is so similar.
So R.K. Maroon wants Eddie Valiant to take pictures of Jessica Rabbit, Roger Rabbit's wife, who he believes to be having an affair with Marvin Acme, the head of the Acme Corporation. Valiant, despite the fact that he doesn't like working with toons, accepts the job because he needs money to pay back Dolores, a bartender and ex-lover who he borrowed money from.
It's a whole $100.
Yeah, it's a whole...
Yeah, it was 1940 something in this, right?
And then, as Eddie is leaving, we get one of the best parts of the movie, I think, just walking through backstage at the lot and all of the different little cartoon gags that are in the background, including a jazz saxophone player playing a version of The Sorcerer's Apprentice that sounds like out of a noir that makes the brooms from Fantasia clean up
the mess on the lot. It's very fun.
That's such a good
We also get a little Dumbo cameo, and they're just like, I got him on loan from Disney. It was just a great...
He works for peanuts.
Oh, God, yeah.
There are a bunch of cows in the background, all practicing their moves. And then when you get to the end of the line, you see that it says cattle call. So it's great. Eddie Valiant hops the red trolley car that is apparently the best public transportation system in the world in Los Angeles.
That made me laugh a lot as well. I was just... it's a lot of throwaway lines that are just, like, really fun jabs, and I didn't remember how many of them in a row there were, pretty much.
And a bunch of 8-year-olds give him a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah, they're smoking cigarettes on the back of the trolley. It's
the 40s.
We see the trolley car depot has been taken over by Cloverleaf, a new transportation company. Then he goes up into the depot where there's a bar, where that's where we meet Dolores. And there's a bunch of zany characters at the bar. There's a cowboy. There's a train engineer. There's like an old-timey cabbie.
And then he gets into an altercation with like a construction worker pulling out his metal lunchbox. He's got like dirt on his face.
And then we basically just get into the case. He goes to...
the Ink and Paint Club.
The password is Walt sent me.
That's a good little password there. And then it's all the little penguin waiters from the House of Mouse, or wherever that's originally from.
Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins,
what
of
year
course.
Did Mary Poppins come out again?
1964.
Because I read a small... I guess it's a fan theory. It's just like these penguins are just those penguins from the movie before they got discovered.
Well, that's what Robert Zemeckis used to say on set. I watched on the Blu-ray. They have a making of Roger Rabbit thing. Robert Zemeckis thinks he's really funny behind the scenes interviews, where he acts like everything in the film is real. So in Back to the Future Part 2 for the behind the scenes, he says, yeah, hoverboards were something that actually existed, and parents complained that they were too dangerous, so they had to take them off the shelves, but we got them for our movie.
Oh my God.
And then he says this essentially the same bit in this. He's like, yeah, the waiters, of course, the penguins are in Mary Poppins, but this is before they got discovered by Walt Disney to get put in that movie.
I like that. That's fun.
It's funny.
It's a funny bit. And then Betty Boop is there.
Oh, I love Betty Boop in this movie.
She's selling cigarettes.
One of...
the 1-2, and he still kind of respects.
They have some kind of friendly past, like they know each other.
Well, we learn from a montage going over Eddie's desk that he and his brother...
the greatest things in, I think, cinematic history, gives you his entire backstory, no words, just camera movement and pictures.
Yeah, and you get everything, really.
Eddie and his brother Teddy used to work a bunch of cases in Toontown. They used to be really funny.
Folk. Their dad was a clown.
I think that's a really elegant, nice way to learn his backstory. And then we also learn from Dolores that his brother was killed by a toon.
Dropped a piano
on his head. Yeah.
So that's why Eddie doesn't work for toons anymore, is because he doesn't want to work in Toontown because a toon killed his brother while they were in Toontown. But he still clearly has a soft spot for Betty Boop. This is where we meet Marvin Acme, and he sprays some...
invisible ink.
Well, initially it's just ink, then it's disappearing ink, so there's no more ink on Eddie's shirt.
You can talk about Donald Duck, Daffy Duck.
Yep, Donald Duck and Daffy Duck.
Equal screen
pianos.
I think that's a great bit. Chuck Jones, he was one of the co-animators on that sequence. and then he hated the way that it eventually turned out, and even though he's still in the credits, he wanted to have his name taken off of the film.
Wow.
He hated the way
wrong with it?
Roger Rabbit turned out.
Good.
Just didn't like it.
The whole movie or that sequence?
Just the whole movie.
That's lame. Well, he's some animation purist, I'm sure. This is a perversion of
I
whatever.
think it's kind of similar to the way that Frank Oz feels about like the Jason Segel Muppets. Even though I think that's a very nice successor to the Muppets of Jim Henson, Frank Oz doesn't like it. I think he thinks it's too crude and too modern, and I think that's just the act of taking something and updating it for a modern audience. No matter how faithfully you keep the spirit of the original intact, I think people who were so protective of that original thing are going to stand by it. And I completely respect that. I love Frank Oz. I love Chuck Jones. I think they're some of the greatest artists of all time.
Yeah, they have every right to stick to their convictions, whatever they may be, if they're like the experts that they are on whatever they do. Anyway, this scene is the introduction of Jessica Rabbit, who I didn't remember this, but I think Eddie believes that she's also a rabbit before she comes on stage.
Yeah, she is.
She is.
She's Jessica Rabbit.
Yeah, you would. It's like Minnie Mouse, Mickey Mouse, you would imagine, but nope.
Very much not that.
Very much not that. Every human man in that club wants to get with this cartoon woman at once.
Would it be any better if it was a hypersexualized cartoon rabbit?
Like Space Jam?
Yeah.
Hey, that's what it is, man. That's what it is.
That's her whole character
I
in
know.
that movie.
I know.
I don't know, man.
Is that character
weird.
in anything other than Space Jam?
The Looney Tunes show.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
She's voiced by
Baby
Kristen
Looney
Wiig,
Tunes.
and they gave her an actual personality.
Good for her.
That's wonderful. But this rabbit is like super breathy voiced, kind of serious.
I'm always so impressed with the interaction of the live action elements and the animated characters in this movie. And the one that really got me this time was when she bends down from the stage and grabs Eddie Valiant's tie. And just how precise that gesture is.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like she really has his tie. And just how hard that must have been to get.
Yeah, I've seen some behind the scenes stuff, and the making of this movie is insane.
I'm sure it was like such a
Like
feat.
even with the octopus bartender, when he bumps like the glasses and they move, they had those who were automated, just like they're mechanized to move that way. There's like an actual on-set woman to do all that.
Yeah, the reference person, I'm sure.
Because they would shoot it often, if they had a reference, they would shoot once with the reference and once without the reference, and then composite those so that the animators knew what the lighting was and everything like that. And then, just like they had 3-foot-tall Roger Rabbits on set, like little rubber Roger Rabbits.
Yeah. Just to make sure that gives much authenticity to the eye line and, you know, just spatial awareness as possible. I get you.
And Bob Hoskins is so good at the eye line in this movie.
Yeah.
This movie would not work if Bob Hoskins' performance did not completely kill it.
Yeah,
but he's so
incredible.
good.
He's, like I said before, he feels like it could just be Eddie Valiant, a detective in a noir film that is a serious role. If they, play down the alcoholism a little less, but you know what I mean. It's generally the vibe is so good.
After Jessica Rabbit's performance, Marvin Acme goes back to Jessica Rabbit's dressing room, where Eddie is able to get pictures of them in a compromising situation.
Got him playing patty cake.
Ooh, scathing. And they, cut back to the office where they're showing Roger Rabbit the pictures, and it is tragic. They're literally playing patty cake in the photos.
Patty cake, which I think it's a funny bit.
Yeah, it's funny.
What's also a really good bit is Roger Rabbit, as he's
flip
flipping
book.
through the photos.
Going
That's
so
another really
fast.
good bit.
Yeah, it's just, oh yeah, very funny stuff.
He gets so upset that they give him a drink, and the alcohol makes him turn into a train whistle and erupt and leave a Roger Rabbit-shaped hole through the window.
Love it. They pull up the blinds, and it's not only through the blinds, but perfectly through the glass. It's the best. Looney Tunes, indeed.
Later, when Eddie gets back to his apartment, he's looking through the old vacation photos of him and Dolores and his brother on vacation at some tropical locale. I think that's an incredibly tender moment for that character. One that doesn't last very long, but it's very sweet.
Yeah.
And he, he has nothing to play off of except his own performance. There's no other characters in that scene, but you see all of the emotions that character is going through.
Insane depth to a character that has to work with a cartoon rabbit for most of this movie.
But the next day, Marvin Acme's been murdered.
He's been real murdered.
And he dropped a safe on his head.
Ain't that just like a tune?
Ain't that just the way? My God. Like, there's the chalk outline, and the corner of the safe is right on the head of the chalk outline. Very fun.
So everybody, of course, assumes Roger Rabbit's done this. What a whole mess this is. We meet Judge Doom?
Yes.
The scariest performance Christopher Lloyd has ever done.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely.
It is, to this day, a freaky character. So intimidating and upsetting.
I think this is the thing that upset me most when I was a little kid and watched it. Everything
just
about
him,
Judge Doom.
his dip, his outfit is just evil. It's just like all black coats and canes and glasses and hat.
So Judge Doom has a vendetta against cartoons, and especially Roger Rabbit. And he has figured out a way to kill cartoons, a concoction that he calls the dip.
And
It's just paint thinner.
Yeah.
Yeah, presumably. And he gives an example of how the dip works by picking up a little cartoon shoe with a face and eyes and feelings and a family and a partner,
and then murders him.
Dips him slowly in the green goop and just shows that it erases the cartoons.
So after that horrifying revelation, we go back to Eddie's apartment. We find Roger
hiding in his Pullman bed and promptly handcuffs himself to Eddie, which is just a very fun way to have someone get stuck with another character. He gets visited by the weasels that are in the employ of Judge Doom, who are like these gangster strong arm people that go around. They're trying to look for Roger, and they have to pull off this great bit where he's hiding Roger in the sink full of dirty dishes underwater while he's trying to explain away everything to the weasels.
Because the weasels are convinced that Roger is hiding in Valiant's apartment because Roger pretty much asked everybody in Los Angeles where he could find Eddie Valiant.
No matter how big or how many the missteps are of Roger Rabbit, it just seems to kind of work out pretty well most of the time.
Well, this is, I think, one of the scenes that best showcases the brilliance of Bob Hoskins' performance because he is acting against nothing. There's a bunch of cartoon weasels searching his apartment that aren't there, and Roger Rabbit handcuffed to him in the sink who isn't there. And so it's just Bob Hoskins essentially alone on a set, creating this incredibly tense scene that's also very funny.
Talking to himself
that's
and
most
nobody.
Of the movie.
Yeah, it's really just 40 people behind the camera watching him be a crazy person alone on a set.
It's really brilliant, the practical effects that went into this, because every time a cartoon interacts with something in real life, that real life thing doesn't become animated, it's still real. So when the weasels walk into the apartment holding their pistols,
holding real guns.
There was a guy up in the rafters with a gun on a string just going boop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop along
it's like a
the
puppet
path.
string gun.
Uh-huh.
Even the bed, when Roger jumps onto the bed, it compresses. It shows
Yeah,
he
it
has
does.
weight.
God, so impressive. All of this. All of the animation to live action stuff.
And then there's a bit when Roger is finally allowed out of the dish soap where he comes out and it splashes everywhere and he spits water out of his mouth. And they had to build a contraption that would come out of the water, create that splash, and then spit water.
Thank God this movie is as good as it is, because all of that effort to make these incredible effects would have been wasted if this movie even had a couple missteps.
At the time it came out, it was the most expensive movie ever made.
Well, I believe that. It's so I know the intensiveness that it takes to do animation, and to do animation like this would just be
the amount of cells needed for this movie.
Oh my God, I can only imagine.
Was insane.
Well, let's
they
talk
had
about
to
the
bring
animation.
in art students to help finish it.
Just rush order all of the stuff they had to do because it was so much.
Because the way that they had to do it, and this is so incredibly impressive, is they would blow up the image from the film stock so that an animator could look at it full size, put a cell over it, animate over that spot in the frame, and then do that for every single frame where there's something animated, which is almost every single frame in this movie.
Pretty much everything that there is, besides a couple very small portions when Eddie is alone in his apartment. But other than that, it's cartoons in every shot of this entire film.
This is actually a great transition into the next part of the film, which is where, after being handcuffed to Roger, Eddie goes to Dolores' bar, hoping that she can hide them in the Prohibition-era back room that they have at the bar there.
Try to avoid the law.
First, when they get to the bar, Eddie is cutting himself out of the handcuffs with a saw.
Oh, yeah, yes.
And then Roger removes his hand from the handcuff, And then Eddie goes, "You mean to tell me that you could have done that at any time?"
Not at any time, only when it was funny.
Yeah, that's the best. That cartoon doesn't care about most like real things getting in trouble or being in a bad spot. They're just in it for the laughs, and that's so much fun.
So Eddie goes back to his apartment. That's when Jessica Rabbit shows up, trying to convince him to tell him where Roger is. At this point, Dolores has also gone to find out about a real estate plot that's going on with Cloverleaf trying to buy Toontown real estate. So when Dolores comes back to report back to Eddie, she finds him in a compromising position.
With one Jessica Rabbit.
With his pants literally around his ankles.
Yep.
Are we not going to talk about Jessica Rabbit's iconic line? Because she's like prime suspect numero uno.
Yeah.
So Valiant doesn't trust her like at all when she's asking for his help. After a bit of back and forth leads into her very iconic line, "I'm not bad, I'm just drawn that way."
It's deep stuff for a cartoon, boys. Because it goes into the whole, like, how toons are seen in this world and how, like, the allegories are getting stronger for, like, other social things.
After learning that I had watched this as a kid, that line was the thing that my parents were, for some reason, most concerned about.
And you told us that the other day, and my only, like, it's a good line. It's well written, and it makes sense. And I guess the only thing that your parents were afraid of is that it was just calling attention to her insane proportions and her figure. Yeah. But that line hits a little different now that we're older. It's very strange and very good.
Now we're back in the bar. Roger Rabbit has drawn too much attention to himself, so Judge Doob shows up because the weasels have been tailing Eddie Valiant in the sewers. Roger and Eddie are hiding back in the back room, which leads to Judge Doom interrogating all of the patrons of the bar, who you would naturally think are going to rat out Roger, but don't.
Roger has a whole speech about it. He gets on a literal soapbox.
Yes, he does. And it's about
laughter.
Yeah, it's about, like, connecting with them through comedy and, like, how they wouldn't betray him.
And how comedy is one of the few things that alleviates the pain of the real world.
Yeah. It's one of the few weapons we have, like, as toons.
Powerful stuff. But ultimately, through the tactic of shaving a haircut, Judge Doom tapping his cane over the area, because, of course, doesn't believe anybody when they say they haven't seen him. Tapping, shaving a haircut on the walls gets him to bust through the wall 2 bits and blow his whole cover.
There are 2 things about this sequence that I want to bring up. One is whenever he's interrogating the bar patrons, one of them says, "Yeah, I've seen a rabbit," and then turns around to the empty bar stool next to him and goes, "Introduce yourself, Harvey." Which Harvey's a movie where Jimmy Stewart has an imaginary rabbit friend.
Yeah. I've never even heard of that, but that is a funny joke now that I know that that's not. I watched that, I was like, huh, weird.
Yeah, you just like moved on. What the hell they were talking about.
That's my pop culture reference.
And then the other thing that I really like about this scene, and it happens in a couple other scenes too, like the scene where Judge Doom is introduced, is when you've got Christopher Lloyd doing a little speech in his like raspy voice. And then the dark, sinister Alan Silvestri suspense music playing, it really feels like Back to the Future.
Yeah, you're getting all those Back to the... How long after Back to the Future was this one again?
This was made in 1988, so 3 years after the first Back to the Future came out.
Right on.
I don't know when 2 and 3 came out off the top of my head.
God, Chris Lloyd is so good in this movie. I'm sorry.
I want to see the Tim Curry version.
The Tim Curry, if he was cast as Doom, oh, that would be such a different movie.
Because they cut him out. Like, they axed him because he was too scary.
Interesting, because he's almost too scary in the real version. He's messed up. He's messed up.
Mm-hmm. They have Roger Rabbit. They're going to put Roger Rabbit in the dip, and Eddie convinces Judge Doom to give Roger Rabbit one last request of a drink.
Knowing full well what alcohol does to the rabbit.
He goes, "I don't want the drink," and then Eddie's like, "You want the drink," and back and forth and back and forth.
You
don't want the drink. I do.
And then
he takes it back, and
a little rabbit season, duck season.
Yeah, I love that. And then we get our steam whistle shattering distraction going on.
They make it out of there, and now they're on the run.
We meet Benny the Cab.
Benny the Cab is in the back of the Weasel's truck. That's a really good effect, I think.
Them just sitting in an animated cab.
I think it really looks like Bob Hoskins is in the back of that cab.
Hell yeah.
Apparently the rig that they used for Benny the Cab is the same rig that they dragged Michael J. Fox from in Back to the Future 3.
No kidding.
Uh-huh.
Weird. That is
There's a
weird.
few frames of that sequence where Bob Hoskins is animated. It was impossible to do it any other way.
Really? Anyway,
So-
Betty the Cab, is this where we're getting more towards Toontown, no?
No, not quite. They're hiding
Not
out
quite.
in the movie theater
Right,
now
yes,
because
yes.
Benny knows a place where they can lay low, which is, of course, a movie theater, where we get some nice relationship building between Roger and Eddie, where they have a little bit more of a heart-to-heart. We see Dolores and Eddie kind of rekindling their romance, which Roger, of course, stifles.
Of course, he sticks his nose in there.
So there's a newsreel playing before the film at the movie theater.
Is
where
Eddie a good detective? He just kind of finds
He
things.
stumbles into clues.
I mean, that's every
Like the
noir.
will, he just happened to be drinking, put his glass over it, and it looked like a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
And here, the newsreel told him what was going on.
Yeah, so the central plot of this movie is very derivative, very reminiscent of something like Chinatown, where the MacGuffin of this film, which has very little to do with the actual plot, really, other than until it motivates the third act, is all the Toons are looking for the lost will of Marvin Acme, which supposedly leaves Toontown to the Toons. However, since they can't find a will, the idea is that Cloverleaf is going to buy Toontown and demolish it.
Yeah, wash it out with the dip, presumably, and...
They're going to build a freeway.
Yeah, that's the big evil plot, is to build a freeway.
Eddie sees the newsreel about the deal between Maroon and Cloverleaf. He rushes to R.K. Maroon's office to interrogate him, and only when he's interrogating R.K. Maroon is about to figure the whole thing out, R.K. Maroon gets killed. We see Jessica Rabbit running away from the scene of the crime.
Big ominous tone.
Mhm.
Is she the evil one?
Eddie Valiant follows her all the way to Toontown.
Yeah, he finally, grits his teeth and he goes through the tunnel. And
Gets his animated
I was
gun.
going to say, this is where he gets his gun ready, his special cased revolver.
That Yosemite Sam gave him.
Yeah.
With the bullets that have little personalities.
Yeah.
They all look like cowboys and or Native Americans.
They're wonderful. They're little
He gets
western
sober
stuff.
in this scene.
Yes,
Yeah,
he
he
throws
does
away
get
his
sober.
alcohol. Well, I love the bullets say, "Where you been, Eddie?" And he goes, "Drunk. You guys ready to go to work?"
Yes, that's his gear up moment.
Uh-huh.
That's him getting his stuff together and getting ready. I love it.
He drives through the tunnel from Back to the Future 2. We're in Toontown.
I
Big
could stay
bits.
in Toontown forever.
You want that whole movie in Toontown? I get you.
It's such a fun sequence. There's just stuff.
Yeah,
everywhere.
everything is moving.
Mhm.
Everything has a personality. It's great.
Well, yeah, Droopy Dog is the elevator operator. As
Tweety Bird is a dick.
well, Tweety Bird's always that way, though.
Yeah, truly.
As he falls out of a building, we
get
see
Mickey and Bugs.
Yep.
On what is this? A crossover
Yeah,
episode?
it's like when they had Donald and Daffy on the same stage as
Mhm.
well.
and Bugs Bunny is, of course, the one who's mean to Eddie Valiant. Ain't I a stinker?
Real quick, you know the whole stipulation for having Warner Brothers and Disney stuff like
That they
mixed.
had to have equal screen
Yeah,
time.
they had to have,
Yeah.
That's why they both enter and exit the scene at the exact same time.
Which is how it is. Later, you see them again.
Yeah.
The exact same thing happens. Finally, Jessica Rabbit has cornered Eddie Valiant in Toontown. She's got a gun pulled on him. Eddie says, "I always knew I'd get it in Toontown." She pulls a Terminator 2
Oh, yeah.
behind you, and she
Damn.
shoots whoever was trying to get Eddie Valiant.
And it's
Big
Judge
fake,
Doom to the surprise of no one.
Yeah, like a
The
guy
character
named...
named Judge Doom,
Doom?
that wears all black, and we see dip cartoon characters to their
The
death.
question of who framed Roger Rabbit was never an
The
issue.
question is, who elected Judge Doom to office and let him do the things he does?
Eddie Valiant sticks out his thumb, which conjures Benny to their aid, and he and Jessica are off to rescue Roger. But Judge Doom hits him with the dip.
Yeah,
and
he like melts the bottom of Benny, which
Spins
is
out,
really messed up. After that, we get to our climax.
Yeah.
we get
It's
in the
in the
warehouse,
The warehouse full of Toon,
which
supplies.
is where Acme was murdered.
Yeah, so we had a setup for a lot of these gags earlier in the movie.
The hole in the wall, the mallet,
The
instruments,
singing sword.
the singing sword.
So essentially all of our characters end up at the Acme warehouse. We won't get into the logistics of it because it doesn't matter.
But we have Roger and Jessica tied up, suspended by a crane, with a very classic-y feeling bad guy mechanism that's gonna spray them down with dip.
It's a giant...
It's like a hose cannon.
Yeah, it's a car with a dip hose on it that they're going to use to obliterate Toontown. But first, they're going to obliterate Jessica and Roger.
And then we get Eddie Valiant making wonderful use of every setup prop from before.
To murder these weasels.
The weasels are capable of laughing themselves to death. So Eddie, who's been super serious and against making a buffoon of himself the entire film, must make a clown of himself like a toon in order to literally laugh the weasels to death in a absolutely fantastic musical rendition set to
The Merry-Go-Round Broke Down.
Of course.
Which is the same thing that Roger was dancing around to earlier. It's a great sequence. Again, just Bob Hoskins killing it. But after all the weasels are dead, then it's a final showdown with Eddie and Judge Doom.
Which is horrifying. It is a sequence of true fear.
Judge Doom gets run over by a steamroller, flattening him out.
He's screaming the whole time that this is happening.
And you figure, he got run over by a steamroller. He's dead. But wait. He's a toon!
Starts to blow back up. He's a toon. His eyeballs, grow into his head.
Not just any toon!
Oh, boy. Then we get the big reveal.
That not only is Judge Doom a toon, he's the toon that killed Eddie's brother.
Thinking about it now, my skin's crawling just remembering how freaky that all is.
That's the part that scared me the most when I was a kid.
Yeah,
sure.
When his voice starts getting higher and he starts getting, pseudo-animated again, it's so freaky.
It's like an arm saws.
Oh, yeah, the arm saws and...
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God.
Eddie is able to use a hole, a portable hole.
Oh, yeah, the cartoon hole-in-the-wall thing.
To escape the clutches of Judge Doom and get him sprayed with dip. He lowers Jessica and Roger, but not before spraying a bunch of conveniently placed fire hydrants to get
wash
the
away
dip
all
away.
the dip.
And the steamroller goes through the wall to Toontown, letting all the toons come into the Acme factory. But just when this thing's got a nice little bow on it, Toontown still doesn't belong to the toons. Eddie notices on his shirt that the ink that Marvin Acme sprayed on him at the beginning of the movie has reappeared. And that's when Roger finds in the warehouse Acme disappearing, reappearing ink. Eddie pulls out a love letter that Roger had written to Jessica, discovering that
he wrote
reappearing
it on the back of the disappearing, reappearing will of Marvin Acme.
Marvin Acme, you tricky bastard.
So Toontown belongs to the Toons. They all sing Smile, Darn You Smile, and they all walk happily into the sunset. Dolores, Eddie, Roger, Jessica, Mickey, Bugs, Goofy...
Everybody, every toon in Toontown celebrates together. Eddie's prejudice to toons is gone, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
He kisses Roger on the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Classic toon move.
Classic toon move, and it is just the best.
And how do we end this movie, Ricardo?
By revealing it's all been a huge origin prequel for Porky Pig.
The best outro.
As they're all leaving, he says, "That's all, folks. That's all, folks. Hey, I like the sound of that."
Roll credits.
"Hey, Porky, this is your cousin, Marvin Pig. You know that new sound you're looking for?
Well, listen to this.
Smile, John, yes, smile."
And then after Porky disappears into his little void, then Tinkerbell comes and gives a little...
Which, perfect. That's the perfect way to end this movie.
There it is. And there's...
I just want to watch this movie again.
Why don't we just all go re-watch it? Because it is such a freaking good movie.
When I was in Orlando at Disney Springs, I went to the Planet Hollywood there, which had a menagerie of goodies. I'll give you a preview, Seamus. It had the pacifier from Sky High.
Oh, yeah, the broken one?
The broken one.
Oh.
It had Jeff Goldblum's final form from The Fly.
Ooh, that's cool to look at while you're eating.
But the reason I bring it up is it had the giant, flattened Judge Doom from the end of Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
That's so cool. That's so freaky and cool.
It's like 15 feet tall. It's in this giant frame.
Accurate to what a human body would stretch out to when crushed by a steamroller.
Does it accurately look like Christopher Lloyd?
Yeah, it does.
That's so freaky. That's the real thing I wouldn't want to look at. Like, that's a nightmare, but that's so fun.
So yeah, Roger Rabbit, thank you for picking this movie, Seamus. I love revisiting it.
I really do it every, it's not that long that I go without rewatching it. It's truly a movie that I can't go without.
Roger Rabbit might come up again later in the episode. So
who knows? Stick around. Stay tuned.
What?
Oh, I hate that. I just... Now it's time for everybody's favorite segment. Where's Riley?
You guys have any guesses about where Riley is?
Where's Riley?
Work.
I'm gonna
Is he at
say
work? He's probably at work.
I'm gonna say outside of his work, even more specifically.
Well, Ricardo won.
Hey.
Well, that's a tally for all you Riley heads out there keeping track. But a tally for Ricardo.
He is at work chilling like a villain. That's what
he
his
didn't even
text
try.
says.
No apostrophe ends. No.
Go to Jersey Mike's. Go harass him.
Take that picture and hashtag it and send it to us. We will not give you anything, but we'll probably laugh real hard. So do that.
We'll give you a shout out.
We'll give you a shout out. Yeah.
We'll mention you on the podcast during our
Hashtag
tweets
it
segment.
Where's Riley, or hashtag it Found Riley, and then give us another hashtag that doesn't make sense to make me laugh too.
Love it. Let's move on to our pop culture reference for the episode.
Our reference this time around is bumping the lamp, which is putting a lot of effort and work into these very tiny details that most audience members probably won't even notice.
The origin of Bump the Lamp is actually from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, in the sequence where Eddie and Roger are hiding in the back room of Dolores' bar. They bump their heads into the lamp, causing the light to swing all over the set, thus making it much harder to animate and shade Roger Rabbit accurately to the environment. So that's where that phrase originated, and so we thought it was really fitting to include that for the reference this episode. Now, let's move on to The Good Place. Welcome to Hell is Other Podcasters, our segment where we break down the latest episode of The Good Place. This is Season 4, Episode 7, and very nicely titled for us, Help is Other People. So, the same concept that we're spinning our title off of, they're spinning their title off of.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah, we should write for The Good Place.
Yeah, oh, they're still going, right? They're still going to have a bunch of seasons?
Yeah,
Of course.
This is definitely not the last season.
Oh, no.
This is a huge turning point for this season, to the point that I don't know where they're going to go after this, because at the very beginning of this episode, the first thing that we learn is it is the last day of the experiment.
Yeah, it's the whole year has gone, and it's the last, however many hours, and they start off in the office coming up with, last-ditch effort plans to gather points.
To make the humans better people.
Yeah.
One of Michael's ideas is to do that magnificent Dr. Presto.
Love the magnificent Dr. Presto.
His magician alter ego. He's been practicing earth magic, even though in The Good Place, real magic exists. We see everybody dressing up for a big party that they're throwing for the humans, and everybody's all suited up, except for Brent, who we find out has a tuxedo in a can that Janet made him.
That. The effects in the show are just so fun. A lot of times they'll do stuff like the tuxedo in a can bit where it's just it just looks nice and clean.
But Simone's starting to get a little suspicious of what's going on.
More than a little suspicious when she busts out the corkboard and red string diagram she's been making for the whole time. Pretty much. The whole experiment. She's been running her own experiment, per se.
So she thinks that there's something wrong in paradise, there's trouble in paradise.
She realizes that the main focus of the entire neighborhood is seemingly the 4 humans, and she thinks that's a little fishy, it makes sense.
This pressures John into exposing Jason as not being Jianyu, but in fact being Jason, because he believes that Jason is the thing that's wrong with the neighborhood. And Brent, then breaks out the fact that Michael and Eleanor told him the lie about him vying to be in the best place, which serves as further fodder for Simone's theory that they are not actually where they think they are.
And this leads us to the party, no?
Yes.
This leads us to the magnificent Dr. Presto getting up on stage, trying to distract further from the humans slowly putting together what's been going on, and we get a big hole eruption in the ground that causes even bigger problems for our humans here.
Yes. Brent falls into the hole
as per the plan that they put together to try to get them to get some last-minute good boy points to get them.
Because it seems like a slam dunk. Of course they're going to save Brent. But Simone and John, after the way that they've been treated by Brent, are not in any way inclined to save him and take off in his Escalade, was it?
Yeah. Not the train, but his wished-upon Escalade.
Leaving Chidi alone to try to rescue him from this pit. This, of course, is a fracturing of Chidi and Simone's relationship that was kind of started earlier in the episode when Chidi told Simone that he was worried that if they weren't really in the good place, that he and Simone weren't really soulmates. An idea which Simone immediately dismisses altogether anyway, which obviously hurts Chidi's feelings because Chidi clearly has really strong feelings for Simone.
And this leads us to Chidi, very good-willed person, also getting stuck in the hole trying to save Brent. That's where Michael and Eleanor find them to have confirmed for them that their last-minute experiment has gone completely the wrong way that they needed it to.
I guess you could say that their experiment really went to hell there at the end there, Seamus.
Oh, Garrett, gosh, dang it.
Now they have a bigger problem where they're trying to figure out exactly how to approach in the last minutes of this experiment, how they can fix it. Now Jason begins talking to the group in sports metaphors, talking about doing a Hail Mary here in the final minutes of the experiment to try to rack up as much points for the humans as they can, and is actually making sense for once. Tahani says, "Jason, that was actually coherent." And then Jason says, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." That's when Eleanor and Michael go into the room and let Chidi tell them, no, this is the bad place.
And then the best thing that could have ever happened at the very end of that episode, it gave me little spine tingles when it happened. It's Eleanor standing side by side with Michael. And then they drop their eyes a little bit, and then they both let out a beautiful, evil laugh,
just
a la
like
Michael
1.
in the season 1 finale.
I also love that Chidi has a callback to season 1 or 2, where he talks about how he drank almond milk.
Oh, yeah,
despite the bad environmental impacts of it.
That's always his reasoning for him being in the bad place, is the almond milk. I do love that.
Being in the bad place, and that revelation finally makes Brent realize that he is a bad person.
When it all seems like it might be going in the right direction that they need it to, where Brent might be getting some self-awareness, and that he might, out of all of them, finally be becoming a better person.
And actually apologize to Chidi.
Which would be a first for him. In the last moment, time runs out. Everyone that isn't the people running the experiment, they freeze. And in a last moment bit, Janet shows up with a pitcher of margaritas that she was told to, quote, bring to Eleanor the second the experiment was over.
Yep, that's pretty funny. And so the experiment's over, so I don't know what we're going to do from this point forward. I don't know what the fallout of this is going to be. Should we move on with the show? Probably.
Let's move on with the show.
Now it's time for Save the Rec Center. Ricardo, what's your rec center?
Oh, I'm going first?
Yeah, let's hit it with us.
You guys remember El Tigre?
Yeah, I remember El Tigre. You rewatching El Tigre?
Yeah, I was watching the new Netflix show Seis Manos, and that got me thinking about Mexican cartoons, and El Tigre popped into my brain. And the creator just gave out all the episodes for free on his Twitter. So
cool.
I've just been watching those. It holds up
That's cool.
I
I
think
remember
it's
that
very
show being
funny.
great.
The art style is different and unique. I don't think we've really seen that around anymore.
Ricardo, for our listeners, what is El Tigre?
It is a Nickelodeon show. It's about Manny Rivera, the son of a superhero and the grandson of a supervillain. And his whole arc is like he can't decide, am I going to be a hero, am I going to be a villain?
Like a face or a heel in wrestling, mostly, or like
Yeah.
actually, yeah. I remember that show being dope. Hell yeah. My rec center this week, I'm going to go ahead and just recommend Dungeons & Dragons, just as a whole. That is something I've been really, really interested in for a long time. And I've been reading a player's handbook, listening to D&D podcasts. Just once you get kind of the gist of how it's supposed to go, it's a lot less intimidating. So please listen or join in on a campaign somewhere, because it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
My rec center, a couple days ago, I went and saw Parasite, which is a new film from Bong Joon-ho, who did Snowpiercer, Okja, Memories of a Murder. It's Korean with English subtitles. You can find it. It's playing at the Oriental Theater in Milwaukee. It's also playing at some AMC theaters. It's very, very good. I'm not going to tell you too much because I think it's just so charming.
Anyone I've talked to about that movie is like, I'd go in blind, don't know anything.
That's my favorite thing about
and I've
a movie
heard
like
nothing
that.
but amazing things about that movie.
Same here.
You can read my review on Letterboxd, Garrett Strother on Letterboxd if you're so inclined, but it's just really a refreshing film. It felt really original, but also had such a initially simple premise. Riley, I believe, has said it's one of his favorite, if not his favorite, foreign film ever made, and definitely his favorite movie of the year. So it's got my stamp of approval and Riley's. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us this week on Pop Culture Reference. If you want to talk to us about any of our rec centers or anything else we've talked about on the show, you can tweet us at PCR_podcast on Twitter or email us at popculturereferencepod@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great week.
Let's play them out. 1, a 2, a 3. Smile, darn ya, smile. Smile, darn ya, smile. We're doing it every episode now. It ends with a musical number.
No.